the sort of origin of a poem is mysterious to me, and I don't know necessarily that it comes from a political impulse, but certainly there are reasons why you write poetry, and a lot of them are from the environment around you. And I think in my case there are certain issues that I deal with. The problem with dividing poetry as sort of poetry and political poetry, it's that sometimes if it's overly trying to be, if it's propaganda, you know, if you're trying to send a message out and you're writing a poem for environmental change or for women, or, you know, that becomes problematic. But for me, it's more about, I guess, bringing in your political view through the poem without it being everything. You know, I mean, it has to stand alone as a poem. And I think it's very interesting, someone like Neruda, who wrote love poems and who later wrote political poetry, I still go to the love poems because they are more universal to me and they have stood, you know, the test of time. And the later poems don't speak to me as much, but during the time when you wrote them, those other poems were probably more special. I usually work with images. I think what happens is that I'll be walking around and I see something and it sticks in my head. And usually poetry isn't always, it's not immediate. It sort of stays and filters through, and then if it still persists, then you think, okay, I'm going to write a poem about it. And sometimes you start with an image, which is one thing, and then you end up with something completely different. So I have a poem called Buffaloes, which starts with taking a walk through the forest and there's a herd of buffaloes, and then that leads to sort of the emptiness of cities and love and other things, and you think, what has buffaloes got to do with love? But everything, apparently. Place is so important to me. It's everything. I think it's a complete obsession whether I'm writing fiction or poetry, because I'm just eternally curious about the idea of beginning somewhere and ending up somewhere else, and the role that destiny or chance or just luck has to play, and how you get diverted. And I think when I look back to the people in my family and the people around me, more and more the story of migration and why we choose to live where we do and when we don't have a choice, those are the things that really concern me as a writer. And so I think I am always writing about place in some ways, and always feeling like an outsider, and always trying to understand what is the idea of home. I've written a novel called The Pleasure Seekers, which is a kind of reverse immigration story about a Welsh woman who comes to India, and it's loosely autobiographical. It's a reinvention of family history, so it's telling the story of, you know, because I think in the Asian context we know about the Asian going west, and I wanted to tell the other story of the Westerner coming east. And I've also just written a novella, which is a retelling of a Welsh medieval myth from the Mabinogion, and in a contemporary setting, and it deals with surrogacy and with the insider-outsider things, and that was really fun to do because it just sort of re-establishes that stories keep on going, and no matter how old it is, it can always find a fresh way to tell something.